Settler William Baisley and his wife Mary Ann Seaman were born in England and came to America soon after their marriage in 1841, settling at Green Lake almost immediately, where they built a small cabin and began to farm. He is the great-grandfather of Alice Hazelwood, who lived on the Hazelwood Homestead farm near Green Lake Center. Mr. Baisley's granddaughter, Florence, is Alice's mother, who was married to William Hill of the Spring Grove Resort family. Thus landowning pioneer families were interwoven among the prairie settlers of this section. Mr. Baisley was a stalwart pioneer and played a distinct role in the development of this center, along with other prominent pioneers. The birth of the original Green Lake Center came in the very early days of the settlers, when the news of rich prairie land at $1.25 an acre was enticing. It happened that in 1846, James E. Welch, the son of George and Martha Welch, came to America from England. He married Elizabeth Baisley, and they came to Green Lake County, where he built a 14 by 14-foot log cabin, working very hard to pay for it on his 80 acres of land. Today we can hardly realize the trials of the early settlers just to stay alive. It was James Welch's original log cabin that became the central meeting place of prairie farmers in the early 1840s, as well as the Traveler. Located on the southeast corner of highways K and N intersection, the small cabin was selected to be the postal distribution center for mail drop-off on its way by stagecoach from Marquette to Green Lake, Ripon, and later other areas. To Welch's log home, the prairie people came to pick up their mail, to visit and talk, and to hold meetings. It soon became known as Green Lake Center in the area. The Green Lake Center community had grown rapidly by 1860. By this time, James Welch's old log cabin center house had become old and deteriorated and stood empty. Then one day in the 1860s, a pioneer by the name of Jack Finch decided to build a tavern on the Green Lake Center house property. This he built on the northwest corner of Horner Road and Highway K intersection, diagonally across from Welch's original log cabin and home mail center. Finch's Tavern existed for quite a number of years as a pioneer center for meetings and refreshment, but ultimately it burned down. The next pioneer to build and operate a center house general store and tavern building was August F. King, son of William and Carolyn King. He operated his store between 1878 and 1885, and then pursued farming on 230 acres of land on Section 9 of the township. Among the proprietors of Center House following August King in the late 1880s were George S. Pickett, Frederick Hamilton, Wharton T. Burdick, followed by his son George Burdick. Warden Burdick's son George had Center House after his father's death, and then it went to Frank Unger, the son of August Unger, in the late 1930s. In the early 1940s, Elmer W. Wildey and his wife Elizabeth became the proprietors of Center House Store and Tavern until 1945, when Clarence and Elizabeth Swiderski purchased it. Little did these owners surmise that a disaster was destined to befall this old landmark, many times remodeled over the years. But in May 1946, this famous hostel and trading post burned to the ground. General store, tavern, and filling station on Friday at high noon. Sparks from the chimney had ignited the shingle roof. Although Ripon and Marquezan firemen assisted, they could only protect the feed mill, a house, and a farm building nearby. A few items of merchandise were removed from the blazing structure by neighbors before oil drums blew up with a roar. The old favorite center for local and lakeshore residents was gone. Mr. and Mrs. Swiderski wasted no time in cleaning up the debris and planning to build a new center house at Green Lake Center. A new building was immediately built to replace the one that was destroyed. The following year, on September 24, 1947, the Swiderskis sold the newly built center house property to Otto C. Warnke and his wife Frida. From that time until Mr. Warnke's death on November 4, 1976, Mr. and Mrs. Warnke operated Center House with the help of sons Paul and Don and their wives. The Otto Warnke establishment became famous for its home-prepared delicious fish and chicken, which they served at Center House for many years. Old and young came to enjoy the weekend of food and refreshment, to pick up groceries from the store, and sometimes fill up the car with gas from the pumps there. Here Billy Hazelwood, the son of Edward and Alice Hazelwood, and Betty Scharschmidt, who would later go on to marry Gordon Warnke, the son of Otto and Frida Warnke, enjoy a horse ride to Center House. On January 17, 1980, Gordon and Betty Warnke purchased the Center House property from Paul and Donald Warnke. Gordon and Betty did extensive remodeling in 1980. The grocery store area became the dining room, and the kitchen was expanded and modernized. A new bar was installed. In what may have been the biggest change for those that remember the old Center House, the restrooms were brought up to the main level. In the old Center House, restrooms were just off the bar and down an extremely steep stairway. Many a patron, after indulging in a few cold ones, missed that first step and realized getting down the stairs was easy, getting back was sometimes more difficult. The people of that generation will remember Paul and Donnie's sense of humor, as after a customer would go downstairs to the restroom, they'd wait a moment, then throw a tin beer tray down the stairs and holler as if someone had fallen. It would almost cause a heart attack. Those were the days. Gordon and Betty's son Dan Warnke perfected the margarita and served Center House's signature drink of that generation tens of thousands of times. A bit of Center House trivia: the hand receiving the margarita belongs to neighbor Carla Barrett, who with her husband Steve now own and operate Bernie's Italian Steakhouse on Highway 73, several miles from the Center House property. Betty and Gordon's daughter Jean perfected the recipes and ran the kitchen. Here, a tray of the famous Center House cheap chicken comes out of the oven. In the 1980s, this chicken was sold all you can eat for $2.38, and with tax, 4 people ate their fill for an even $10. Dan Warnke's son Evan, age 6 at the time, poses with a cigar store Indian and dreams of one day owning the Center House property. The Indian was a hand carving by local carver Dale Schermerhorn, and regular patron Craig Heitman would rub its headdress for luck on his way to the restroom. Evan's dreams were not to be realized, at least through inheritance, as after 53 years in the Warnke family, Center House was sold in 2001. The business continues to thrive today.